crimes of rape, torture, treason, kidnapping, and murder are by many a standard medieval crimes deserving of medieval punishment. However, this is America, so the best we can do is the death penalty. There are many reasons why death penalty is an important factor in the war against crime, including it gives closure to the victims' families who have suffered. Justice is better served. Our justice system shows more sympathy for criminals than it does for victims. DNA testing and other methods of modern crime science, which we have already mentioned, can effectively eliminate almost all uncertainty. And prisoner parole escapes can give criminals another chance to kill. In Alaska, a girl was raped and murdered in her dorm. This is back in the 80s. And the man is still in prison. He attempted to get parole like a bunch of times already, but the sister stated that her family would feel a lot better if he was just gone, but they don't have the death penalty in Alaska. Another example of how it would give closure to a family is Karen E. Montgomery killed his former girlfriend and killed his former girlfriend and 2 kids, stabbing them to death on Thanksgiving Day. Stabbed his girlfriend 46 times and their daughter 14 times and slit their son's throat. According to Columbus Dispatch, the spectators in the courtroom were happy that he was sentenced to death. Deborah Hendricks, the victim's mother, had hopes for a death sentence since day one. Anita Hayes, the victim's aunt, stated that she felt comforted and that he would be put to death, and justice was served. He killed his own family, so what better punishment than for him to be killed? The citizen that has lost the privilege of being a part of our society. Many say that in prison he will no longer be a part of our society, but he can escape or he can get parole. And yeah, a lot have been released on parole, even if they have committed capital crimes. For example, from prodeathpenalty.com, doesn't sound biased at all. In 1985, a 13-year-old Karen Patterson was shot to death in her bed in North Charleston, South Carolina. The killer was a neighbor who had already served 10 years of a life sentence for murdering his half-brother Charles in 1970. Joe Atkins cut Patterson's phone lines, then entered bearing a machete, a sawed-off shotgun, and a pistol. Karen's parents were chased out of their home by Atkins. Karen's mom ran into Atkins' home nearby, where Joe then murdered his adoptive father, Benjamin Atkins, who was 75 years old, and had worked to persuade the parole authorities to release Joe in the first place from his life sentence. Another one was Katie Davis, who observed 3 strangers outside her Austin, Texas apartment. She walked away. Returning later, she was attacked, forced open the door by Charles Rector on parole for a previous murder. The men ransacked her apartment, abducted her, and took her to a lake where she was beaten, gang raped, shot in the head, and repeatedly forced underwater until she drowned. In 1965, Robert Massey murdered mother of 2, Mildred Weiss, in San Gabriel, California, during a follow-home robbery. Hours before execution, a stay was issued so Massey could testify against his accomplice. Massey's sentence was commuted to life when the Supreme Court halted executions in 1972. Receiving an underserved second chance, Massey was paroled, but 8 months later robbed and murdered a businessman, Boris, something I can't pronounce, in San Francisco. Those are just 3 of the many who were released on parole and returned to the society to commit crimes again. According to the ACLU, in the U.S., as of September 2011, 273 people, including 17 death row inmates, have been exonerated by the use of DNA tests. The increasing use of DNA testing to help confirm the innocence or guilt in capital cases is one among many reforms that help ensure that innocent people are not sentenced to death. The opposing opponent mentioned that some police officers are unqualified and that may not, know about the DNA testing, but scientists review the DNA test over and over, so it's trustworthy. A case that many people have heard of, here in California for Prop 34 was the one of Frankie Carrillo. And in March 2011, the Los Angeles County Superior Court reversed Frankie Carrillo's 1992 conviction of murder and ordered his release after 2 decades behind bars. At 16, Frankie was wrongfully convicted of a 1991 murder based solely on identification and testimony from 6 people. All 6 eventually admitted that they were unable to see the shooter and were influenced to make their decisions of Frankie by the police and by each other. 2 other men have since confessed to the shooting and said that Frankie was not at all involved. This man being sentenced to death would be very unfortunate to say the least, but it will not have been the fault of anyone but the witnesses who will negligently accuse Carrillo. When someone is shot, we don't blame the gun, or in this case the death penalty. We blame the shooter, or in this case the idiots who blame Carrillo. 1,264 people have been executed in America so far, as stated by The Guardian website, and there's an average of 15,000 murders a year, according to pro-death penalty. Not to mention the crimes of rape, torture, and conspiracy, treason, which could also be awarded a death sentence. Given the amount of time and these numbers, it is obvious that capital punishment is reserved for the absolute worst of the worst.